Guys, they finally added vertical slabs.
Oh my god!
The block called the shelf.
Oh my god! I thought they added vertical slabs!
Did you know that the Mojang people have actually considered adding vertical slabs to Minecraft, but they decided not to because it quote-unquote inhibits natural creativity and can already be done in other ways that are not being considered. But in what other ways? Well, there are actually 4 ways you can go about making vertical slabs in vanilla Minecraft, and the first one is trapdoors. Now you might think that this is a stretch cause, well, but if I place another trapdoor next to it, we get a 6 pixel wide vertical slab that takes up 2 blocks of space. There's a lot you can do with this when it comes to exteriors, like in this house's entrance for example, I've used it in 3 different places. First, these arched windows use spruce trapdoors down the middle, and spruce along with birch, dark oak and pale oak are the only trapdoors without holes, which makes them blend in seamlessly with other planks. I think this looks so beautiful, especially with the stained glass. This is completely empty on the inside, not that there's an inside or anything because this is completely flat. But the next place where I've used the vertical slabs, I hate saying that word, it makes me feel like a clickbaiter, is on this pergola. And here I've combined 2 types of trapdoors, one without holes and one with holes. The way they're placed kinda makes it look like the bamboo trapdoors have these intricate spruce details in them. And the fact that this is supposed to be a kind of combined slab, if we can call it that, is also another reason why Mojang just refuses to add vertical slabs to the game. Mojang, whatever you want to say. I'm saying Mojang because I hate the Swedes. If we go back to the infamous previously considered suggestions page and look under the builders, look here section, Mojang says that if you're thinking putting 2 different kinds of slabs together would be great. It is. It just
isn't going to happen.
They know what they are doing. They know what they are doing. Now, the last way I've used the vertical slabs in this exterior is by making this fallen chair. I've used dark oak trapdoors in the ground to match the back of this chair, and the birch trapdoors are here as the vertical slab to replicate the cut sandstone slab. A really cool thing about using trapdoors this way is that all the different trapdoors have non-wooden blocks they go really well with, which makes it really versatile. Some of these blocks aren't the closest in hue, like the cherry trapdoor with a purple block for example, and you'd maybe think a more purple trapdoor like this one would look better, but it's actually more important that blocks are similar enough in value than it is that they're similar in hue. Value communicates form and depth and can be used to highlight things. Too light of a value and it looks like it's protruding, too dark and it looks recessed, so feel free to screenshot this as it can be an alright starting point. I've also made a dining room with another 3 examples of the trapdoor vertical slabs, as these are great for interiors too. So first up, here are some table legs made with these trapdoors. The middle of this table is sunken in so you can actually place stuff on it, and then over here there's a thing. I honestly don't know what this is, I just had to fill the space with something, and this uses the vertical slabs on the sides along with a debug stick mud wall in the middle, which happens to be 6 pixels wide too, so it blends in really well. Another noteworthy thing about this thing is that I did not use trapdoors to create the top like this right here for example, as I wanted this to be rectangular, and having this small gap here would create the illusion of a rounded off edge, you know, implied shape. You would know what that means if you've watched my interior tutorial. Shameless plug. Okay, go watch it. And now the last way I've used the vertical slab is here in this partition. I made a partition here just because I really don't like rooms feeling too open in most contexts. I think open floor plans are demonic, and by breaking the visual consistency, this lets you know you're in another room without having walls actually there. Pros and cons of trapdoors. The pros of using trapdoors as vertical slabs, or pro should I say, is that they are really versatile. We have all these different blocks and textures that match them, but that's about it. The cons of using trapdoors are that they only have 3/4 the pixels of a normal slab, and the fact that almost all of them also have holes can make it a bit tricky to build with, but you know, we got spruce. We got spruce. Walls. Yes, these blocks can become vertical slabs through this beautiful godsend known as the debug stick. The debug stick lets you change block states, so the shape of a block, how it's placed, whether it's waterlogged, and so on. This is the command for the debug stick, but you can also find it under the operator items tab, which you can enable by going to options, controls, and then enabling it. So if I wanted to turn this stone brick wall into a vertical slab, for example, I would cycle through the different things I can change with the left button, and then I would change the block states by right clicking low to then tall, and then I can do the same with south. Now I just gotta disable up, and here we have a vertical slab. This is 6 pixels wide, but it's pretty much the closest we can get to genuine vertical slabs at the moment. And to show what this can look like in the build, I've made this house that uses the vertical slabs in 4 different ways. This house also actually has a back. First up, the windows again, but this time they're only a little over 1 block wide, as I've used walls down the middle with a block at the top and upside down stairs on the sides. This actually looks decent without the debug sticking too, but you know, it obviously looks better with it. The only issue with this design is that the arch is 8 pixels wide on one side and only 5 on the other, but to even this out, you can place trapdoors inside the windows to give it another 3 pixels and make it truly even. Like here, for example, where I've used pale oak trapdoors with diorite, because you will need trapdoors and walls that match. The second and most eye-catching place where I've used the vertical slabs is in the roof. Debug sticked walls can be used to even out steep roofs, so you don't need to use stairs that will have it looking wavy and disgusting. This also uses a very subtle gradient from black stone bricks to deep slate bricks for some texture, and walls are hard to texture and texture with as there's so few of them. But I've made 7 different gradients with the wall blocks that you can hopefully use, or hopefully they'll inspire you or something, I don't know. Okay, I don't think I can do this. The third place I've used these walls is in this fence that also has the same vertical slab-like shape, though this comes from the fences and fence gates on top. Without these, they would only be 14 pixels tall and therefore not real vertical slabs. But if you want just the walls, just debug stick them. The very last place where I've used these is in the pond as stepping stones, or rather one stepping stone should I say, as I only debug sticked one of them to be slightly longer than the other 2. Now onto interiors. For this example, I've made this bedroom, and I am so happy with how this looks. I would no joke move into this, but I've used the vertical slabs here in 2 different places. First up, this desk's legs uses the vertical slabs. The things on the sides are brown banners in invisible item frames, which make for some really nice details. And over here, this entire wall is made of the wall block, so all the full blocks placed here immediately become 5 pixel wide vertical slabs. I feel like it's really difficult to make real life furniture pieces look good as entire 1x1 meter blocks sometimes, but wow, here we have a bookshelf that's approximately 30 centimeters and not 1 meter. This door is also slightly set in just for some depth, as depth also is important in interiors. And then here we have this shelf that smoothly blends into this normal wall through just using the shelf block. Shaders off, cause now I think it's about time I show an example of an organic build. And if you don't know, organics in Minecraft building refers to builds of things with many organic shapes, so for example humans, geese on capybaras, frogs with feet, and so on. So here I've used the vertical slabs to create a smaller organic build of me if I was guillotined. There are 2 colors you can make humans in if you're doing this, sandstone and mud, and I happen to be mud brick colored, so I made myself. It's easier to imply organic shapes when you're building big, so if you're making smaller organic builds like this, it's nice to have something to imply those shapes with. I've used walls all over this to smooth the shapes out, but on the forehead, under the eyes, on the nose bridge, and on the sides of the face, I've used debug sticked walls to cover full block surfaces. And I'm not gonna lie, this does look a little bit weird, but it's what I could do with the scale I willingly chose to build at. And due to the fact that there aren't any deep round walls, the shading is placed a bit weirdly too. If only we had a deep round wall. But there is really not a lot of consistency with walls and blocks. Like all the bricks, for example, have their respective walls, apart from prismarine bricks and quartz bricks. But I mean, at least we have prismarine brick slabs and stairs and quartz brick slabs and stairs. Walls also look pretty bad from certain angles when placed next to full blocks, even when you debug stick them. Oh shit, debug stick mentioned, good luck with that, survival players, but there must be some pros though, right? You can place them in the middle of blocks. Yay! They also legitimately look like vertical slabs, like they actually do. This is genuinely the closest we can get to real vertical slabs. I swear, if I'm armor stands. Okay, hear me out. This one's kind of a stretch, but I want to share it regardless, cause I don't know, maybe one person uses this. If you put armor that matches a block on an armor stand and create another one that faces the other way and place them together, you can use it as a kind of vertical slab. Alright, I said it was a stretch. I've made a few more examples of these, and this example uses copper armor. It's encased in a couple of copper trapdoors. Copper armor is especially versatile when it comes to this, as we also have all of the copper blocks and they can be fantastic. Here I've used netherite armor in between two debug sticked walls, and from afar this actually looks like a triangle. This is great for roofs, as you're about to see. And yes, you could just use trapdoors for most of these, like this is already pointy enough without the armor stands on top here. But as you can see, it does come with the disadvantage of these holes. But what would this look like in an actual build? Well, here I've made a castle-like building overlooking this lush lake, and it uses the vertical slabs into pretty inconspicuous places. The first place where I've used these is on these pointy things I don't know the name of, but they're made with leather armor dyed with light grey and white dye. Then I've pushed them together with pistons and walls. And one thing that can be an issue with using armor stands like this is the light grey bottoms that armor stands have, but here I've used skulls on the sides which are the same light greyish color to keep it consistent. The second place where I've used the armor stands is in this pointy roof. Because it's even numbered, I can't use walls as the top, which I normally would, and since I'm working with blocks that don't have matching trapdoors, I wouldn't be able to do something like this either. But here I've used 14 or something armor stands with netherite pushed together closely, and from afar it actually works pretty well. Alright, pros and cons part. Pros. The pros of using armor stands this way are that it's survival friendly for one, no debug sticking or anything is required, and it's extremely versatile in terms of placement. You can place them in between blocks, in the middle of one, or whatever pleases you. There are also so many color options to choose from, as we can dye leather armor in all kinds of dye. Even gradients can be made with these if the right dyes are combined. And if you've ever wanted slabs of the material blocks to flex on your broke ass friends, you can have that too. Now, cons. This is time consuming. This is seriously time consuming. Placing down a short row of vertical slabs should not take 12 minutes. If you're dyeing leather armor, you'll also get these ugly brown stripes. Ew. And not to mention, armor stands are entities and these have shorter render distances, so if your build's meant to be viewed from afar, they'll just disappear. And if you're playing on a microwave, the fact that these are entities will also be... Now last but not least, shelves. Alright, I'm sorry for this. I made a severe and continuous lapse in my judgment, I know. But shelves, even though they're not vertical slabs whatsoever, can be used in a similar way with the added benefit of their functionality for detail. Here I've made a house, fully furnished by the way, where I've used the shelves as vertical slabs in 13 different places, and I'ma be real, I kinda lost the plot here, so I thought I'd just give you a house tour. First up to the entrance, we have these stairs that use the shelves as railings. Shelves look way more sturdy than trapdoors, so I really like using them in this way. Also, look at these glass blocks. I just had to mention this because I'm sexually attracted to glass blocks, but these are made with full glass blocks and then glass panes in invisible item frames. So if I enter, this is the hallway entrance thing, and then here we have this bar area that uses the shelves just for some shape, and then over here in this table I've used the shelves to create the table legs. Here I've also done the same thing where I just slightly set in a trapdoor to actually be able to place stuff on it. Above this I've also used them in this arch that helps separate this room, and then out here I have used them as backs of chairs. Also looks really cute. This terrace is also such a vibe. Like, look at this with the lanterns and the hanging plants and this view. Wait, I gotta turn up the render distance. I can't believe it's not at 32. Okay, that's more like it. Oh shit. By the way, if you're ever wondering how I get all these beautiful seeds, I just go on the Minecraft seeds subreddit and just look up mountains, meadow, and I don't know, cherry blossom. Now, if I go back inside, this is the kitchen. Here we have shelves that are used as actual shelves. Unbelievable, I know. But here in the living room, I have used them as armrests on this couch. Also, look at how this partition breaks up the space. It can be a really nice way to break rooms into more secluded spaces without having full-on walls. Now in here I've not used shelves as vertical slabs whatsoever. I just wanted to show off the bathroom. Now if we head upstairs, this is the art space slash bedroom area. One thing I've noticed with all my interiors is that they're all basically just my dream home. But here I've used the shelf as an easel. This detail on its own probably wouldn't make way too much sense, but I think that a good context is more important than a good detail. This side of the room doesn't use the shelves in any vertical slab-like shapes. Maybe this does, but I don't really know. This isn't really a proper detail, I'd say. But here we have a bed, and then upstairs we have this small little area. Yeah, so that's the top floor. Now let's head down to the pool room. So here I used it as a plant pot to have this fern here. I don't really think I've used it in any other ways down here. I just want to show off this pool because I'm really happy with how this turned out. And in here there's just this small bathroom. Now if we head outside, we can take a look at the final details. Down here I've used the shelves as a back of a bench. Here and all around the house I've used the shelves to detail these flower beds, or plant beds should I say. Here we have another example of this. Here I've used trapdoors but mixed in some shelves to give it some more depth. Over here I've used them as shutters, which looks really good. And speaking of windows, over on this side I've used them in the circular ones. And I know they technically aren't perfect circles, but I much prefer this over the perfectly circular trapdoor ones. Now the last place where I've used the shelf block as everything but an actual shelf is here on this thing in the back that looks like it was glued to the building very last minute, because it was. Alright, I just needed somewhere to put the staircase. But here the shelves do a wonderful job at imitating planks. You know, maybe the Mojang people were right after all. Okay, I know how that sounds, but listen, do we actually want our natural creativities to be inhibited in this way? To be able to think creatively outside of the box, there must be box to begin with. But you don't think, therefore you're not capable of that. Hey, thank you for watching all the way till the end. Like, subscribe, do whatever YouTubers tell you to do. Love you, bye. You know, gotta strengthen that parasocial relationship.